so the play doesn't happen on the stage. It happens in the imaginations of the audience. That was something that was said, and I like that, because it kind of, I think of the Jacobean Elizabethan era, Shakespeare's time, and because it was in the elements, it was open to the elements. They were in the Globe Theatre, had to perform in the day because they had no light. So they got the Blackfriars Theatre in 1606, where they would perform with candlelight later on, and that kind of added something new. But that was not until, but before then they couldn't. So you could see the audience. The actors were they were very aware that they were sharing something, that it was a shared experience, that it wasn't that the play happens within each individual imagination of everyone. And they say in like the chorus of Henry V, your imaginary forces work. That when we speak of horses, imagine that you see the hooves imprinting, and it's this sense of we're creating something together. It's not one-sided whatsoever. It's that you're sharing the kind of process, and you're allowing them in. The few times I've seen you, that you don't. Whenever I see you, I don't think that you're performing. I feel that you're kind of playing. That you're allowing us into the process. You do all the work, but when you get to the moment, all there is the present state of you and the audience, and it's shared. And when you get there, you have to be willing to trust and have faith that all the work you've done is there, that nothing nothing is lost, that you can change, and everything can change and evolve, and you have to allow yourself to evolve within the moment. But you have to trust that nothing's going to be lost. It's all there. It's all still there within you. But you have to also trust that it's there enough so that you can throw it all away, adapt, and allow yourself to find a little moment where an audience member kind of looks at you in a way with a kind of childlike curiosity, and they're looking at you in a certain way, and you see it and you pick it up, and you can't help but respond because it does something. There's this really funny story about this actor I greatly admire, and he was playing Hamlet. He was doing To Be or Not to Be, and so he goes, to be or not to be, and then he pauses for a long time, because he used to pause, and a lot of thought, very thoughtful. And there was a couple right in the at the edge of the stage, looking up, and the wife says to the husband, she says, to be or not to be, pause. The wife, that is the question. And he goes, that is the question. And so and I think that's a really lovely example of it, that you have to, there's nothing, it's dangerous and it's unpredictable, and it's like, to be honest, now I've reached a point where I kind of adore the idea of not knowing what the hell is going to happen. But I've only been able to reach that. I try to remind myself to take myself back to why I started. I remember myself being a child and just playing in the park and just loving it and having so much joy for it. And there was no sense of reward. There was no sense of like needing there was no expectation. That there just was the love of doing it, the process, that the love of to really love something was enough. And so I feel like if you're grounded within that love, within that kind of pure diamond, that we all have a kind of diamond, we all have a kind of fire within our soul, a kind of thing that is very true and has been there since the beginning, that kind of thing that is in a lot of ways who we are. And I think everyone has it. Some people are more in tune with it than others. Some people allow the diamond to feel more pressure and more intensity, and maybe form a little more, but we all have it. And I feel like if you're grounded within that, like a hurricane, where there's the eye of the hurricane, if you find that you're weak of it, if you can be grounded within the eye of the hurricane, then you can allow the chaos around you to ensue. And then confusion is not frightening, it's actually exciting. Um, well, since an early age, I've just really always loved kind of, as we all do. I'm really, I don't think I was much different. I'll admit I had really good parents. My mother raised me very well, but I just loved playing pretend in the park, playing make believe and putting a cape on. But then again, you don't really think of it like that. You don't, the love kind of, I think love is very present. I don't think love, the love of something thinks too much about why it loves it. It just kind of, it's hard to, it's hard to put into words, but I don't think it desires to be put into words. It kind of spoils it. But when you become self-aware, it could be dangerous. We do a lot of things out of in innocence. This we'll build to creativity here, but we do a lot of things in innocence. And you know, for example, maybe something was funny. Something could be very funny, or something could be actually quite good when it came to you in a state of innocence, in a kind of state of raw, chaotic, just going with it, just going with the kind of flow of it. Because of course an actor is self-aware, like that last speech in Macbeth, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, and he says, life's a but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. He's saying, that's him, me, like Gabriel playing Macbeth. I'm the actor. I'm the poor player that struts and frets my hour upon the stage, and then I'm not gonna. No one's gonna hear about me anymore after. Like there's that self-awareness, kind of meta thing. If you're really present, and if you really aim at that present, and if you really if you're grounded in the love of it, you lose, all of that goes away, and it becomes so simple and so elemental. Real elemental is a good word, I think, because you hone into the kind of the very specific aspect of it. And when you do that, and you're present, and whatever happens is enough. You can think, you can reflect on it, you can meditate on it afterward, but the memory of it is enough. It kind of lives in what it was. And that's beautiful in its state as it was. And then you say, well, what's next? Let's keep on moving. I like to think that I'm going to say two things. I like to think that you only really need one person, that one person is enough. Like you don't need you can't please everyone. It's not even your business to please people when you're creating something. It's just your business to make sure that it's yours very clearly and open to what it is, what you give it in your love, in your diamond, your fire. Then, because I'm human and because I'm doing this for other humans, inevitably maybe one person will find it. And I think if just one person finds it, I think that's enough. It could be for that little child that is hearing Shakespeare for the first time, and because I did something, they hear it and they say, oh, I like Shakespeare. Oh, that sounds cool. And if you could do that for one person, I think that's enough. You don't, the language is 400 years old. Half of the people aren't going to have the slightest idea of what you're saying. But if you know what you're saying, and the experience of it is real and human and honest, and almost acidic in its honesty, kind of like raw and nothing put over it, just what it is, naked and unashamed. In the Elizabethan period, the word self was always put, with a space. So my self was always my space selfe. That would put e, or yourself was a space, or themselves. And because the Elizabethans kind of believed that there was two, they were much more attached to the soul than we are in our modern day, but religiously, so they believed that there was actually two parts of who you were, that there was yourself, but that yourself wasn't you. that you could caretake, it was a part of you, myself, it's my thing, but it wasn't you. That there was a kind of, you can't really play intellectual forms too often. It's not, because it's so unintellectual and it's so irrational, like music, the experience. You can't, you can't put words to it often. But so when you kind of, when I like think like this, I often say, be wary of these things. But I do like the idea of just saying, like, in a soliloquy, for example, in Shakespeare, when you're speaking to the audience, that you're speaking to a part of yourself, that the audience is an extension of who you are, of yourself, myself. And so in that way, you're never really alone. Maybe just your self is enough. But it's always nice to have someone, I guess. Yeah, I feel that I'm a very kind of spiritual person, but I just feel like I have to be, like, art is just such a kind of evocation. I was talking about the other day that inspiration, the word inspiration in Shakespeare's time, it would have been pronounced inspiration, and it's kind of in spirit, to inspirit something. That the act of inspiration is a kind of spiritual one. This is interesting. They were very connected, almost alchemically. That's why I go back to the word element that I used, and it's very alchemical, I think, in the sense that it changes, and but that the element always kind of stays the same. That goes back to what we were talking about. But the Elizabethans were really interested in the interconnected relationship between the earthly and the spiritual, and that there had to be a kind of harmony between them. They actually believed that there was something called musica mundana in Latin, of the world, the spheres above, and that they believed that there was also musica humana, the music of the body and soul, and that there had to be a connection of the spherical influence, the providence from above, even in a kind of just like planetary way, kind of just the planets kind of having a power on what we are, and our connection with nature. From dust thou art, and to dust thou shalt return. That the cycle of, it's very circular always. I find that it's very. But that, and there was actually a music. They believed that there was this music, but it was so high pitched that you couldn't hear it, but that it was the music of the body, which I suppose you kind of hear in the grumblings of the stomach and the, but that there's a kind of music in everything, and it kind of, you have to find the tune. You have to become in tune with these spheres and with who you are, and I guess become grounded in the, concentrate the energy, leave it open, keep the channel open, but just concentrate it and make it more specific. Keep all that energy and all that raw chaotic power and force, but just don't let it get too distracted. I guess that's always what it is, that you have to be very open-minded, but you also have to be concentrated on something that's very specific. And if that specificity is the love of it, then that should be pretty good. That should make you hold on. Something that I've been trying to live by recently is just that I feel, I've been feeling very present recently, very kind of here, and not, there's not it's not too much thinking going on. just a lot, just trying to be present, and I, and I kind of, you mentioned nature, and that's been big for me, and I know it's big for Jung. There's a sense of, nature just is, like, she's the ultimate kind of, she's absolute in her presence, and she's patient, and you have to be patient with it. And it's like, Nature performs her works gradually, and indeed I would have thee do the same. Let thy imagination be guided wholly by nature, and observe according to nature, through whom the substances regenerate themselves in the bowels of the earth, and imagine this with true and not with fantastic imagination. That there's kind of a special providence in the fall of a sparrow, that there's, as Hamlet says, that there's a kind of things happen as they will happen when they will happen, and that is, you just have to kind of follow that and be present with that. And that, in her own time, in nature's own time, she shows little signs of love. If it's in the flower will blossom, it will. My mother told me this recently, and it stuck with me, that my abuela Lila, my great-grandmother, told her, and that she said that nature goes through such trauma every time, the season, she completely dies, and yet she always finds life again, like, very phoenix-like. She finds the fire, because she's so present with that. And that in alchemy, the soul of the thing doesn't change necessarily. No, let me rephrase that. The soul of the thing isn't lost, although it will change. Through our songs of innocence and experience, we grow and change, but it's impossible to lose who you are, really. Sometimes it could be very suppressed, and that's unfortunate, but it's always there. Nothing is ever too far from finding the purity. Like Citizen Kane, Rosebud, he goes through this metamorphosis of becoming this American businessman and kind of person with everything that you could, sensual pleasure and all the earthly things, the flesh, and yet at the end, he sits on his chair, and in his room in his Xanadu, in his palace, where he has everything he ever could wish for. The only words that comes from his mouth, Rosebud, and he drops the snow globe, and then you see Rosebud. That Rosebud was when he was a kid, and it was just the child. Creativity for me is as humans, we're so yearning for the unknown. We're yearning for that place in between, that other world where inspiration and the imagination lives. And we're always that spiritual place, and we're always trying to get to that and reaching out. We're always trying to reach out to that. But it's always so pure. It's just so simple. It's very simple, but it really is just the element. This was interesting. I thought of the word genius in its purest definition is a spirit. They believed, Shakespeare uses it this way, that the genius is actually kind of a possession. That when someone is a genius, it is not them that is the genius. It is that they're the vessel for genius. That it's a kind of spirit that you evoke. So it's not you, but it is you. It's a part of you, and yet. I read more poetry than prose, because prose I find is more for the narrative, and poetry is more for the experience of the language, which is what I'm interested in. And I think theater is that. Like theater in its purest form is about the text. It's all about the language, and it's about finding the journey with the experience within the language. We forget this, but Shakespeare was much more in tune with this than we are. Today we say, let's go see a movie, let's go see a play. But Hamlet says when he's about to do the players come in, he says, tomorrow we shall hear a play. And so Shakespeare would have actually said, let's go hear a play instead of let's go see a play. And so it was so much about, we've forgotten that it's called an audience is an audioence. You know, we've become so visually heavy. You know, you see the Marvel films and all the, and just these spectacles. It has a lot of spectacle and a lot of, we forget that that language is the direct channel to the imagination, that the ear is the direct channel to our imagination. And that's, you know, I just, it kind of puts you in awe, and it kind of excites you to think how connected, how interconnected these people were. Even the people, the groundlings, you know, hissing and throwing furniture, but how connected they were to their imagination. And it's that's why it's so frightening today when I see a little child on an iPad at 3, you know, obsessing with those videos with bright colors on and those sound. And it's very disturbing, because it's you're removing your rosebud, you're removing the ability to have, for a child to have the imaginative power of play, and to really love just creating their own little things and being creative. Because I honestly believe we're all we all have the potential to be very creative creatures. We are very creative creatures, as human beings. And some of us, you know, kind of forget that. But it's the job of those people that keep the channel open, that keep that kind of raw energy, that chaos open, even though they're grounded within the love, but that they keep it open to, in a concert or in a theater, to bring a group of people together and to remind them what it is to be human, to be the child, to have that imagination, to be present. Because you see the child and he's sitting like this in a chair, like with his back off the bat. Yeah, and they're so like with their it's very beautiful, the joy that they bring. And I think theater does that. Like, good theater does that. It brings everyone, that everyone is there, that we're there, and we're curious, and there's wonder, and there's awe, and there's a direct connection to the imagination. We're all directly connected. And also, when I say imagination, I don't mean the internalized imagination. I mean the externalized one. The kind of, it's not, I don't think it's very like, you're like in your own little circle and you have your very little things, you know, that's cute. But I do think it's more, you're sharing it with others, and we're all here together. My teacher, Miss Jennifer Castroverde from New World, would say it was second circle, like you've entered the balance. You know, I guess life is a kind of search for balance, and we, it goes back to alchemy. You know, in alchemy you have to find the balance of it, and I find in good theater and good music allows people that maybe would have forgotten to be reminded of that just for a little while. But that's enough. I like, for me, it's so much about the language more so than anything else. I'm the type of person that when I'm reading something, I have a little piece of paper where I can write words I like, so I can use them in my writing. I actually would read more often than not just to find new words. Yeah, anyway, so my writing is mainly about the language, the process of writing the language, and I'm the type of person that'll spend an hour on choosing the right word. Like every word is specific, and you know, the sound of it and the rhythm of it and the connection that it has with the other parts. It's all kind of, yeah, you find the harmony in it, or the discord, but yeah, and I think it's just that thing of being the eye of the chaos in all its discord and its harmony. I find my writing has become much more personal now than it was. I used to write to a certain part of the heart, a certain part that was maybe closed off, maybe not ready yet, to be put into words. Maybe it was a sense that something can be very sincere, but also feel like it has to be put something on. And until you realize that you don't need to put anything on it, and that it's enough as it is, which I've realized, relatively recently, you find just now my writing has become the times I do write, it's become much more personal and derived from experience rather than purely imaginative. It's still very connected to the imagination, obviously, but before I think it was pure imagination, to the point that it might feel a little disconnected to humanity, maybe a little bit too nightmarish and strange. I've become a little more connected to my humanity in that sense, but I've also tried not to lose that childlike innocence. That's where the self-awareness comes from, because when you were doing that, you weren't aware that you were doing a thing, like you were doing something and it was kind of exquisite and very kind of your own, very unique, but you weren't aware that it was unique. You just thought that it was what it was. You didn't judge it. And the danger of being self-aware is that you open the door to judging it, and you have to make sure as an artist that you separate yourself from the work enough to the point that you realize, I'm going to be present with something and I'm going to have the love of something, and I won't judge it, because you can't play the judgment. You can't, as an actor, you can't judge a character. It doesn't work. You can't play I'm bad, I'm a villain. You can't play that. You have to play the truth of the human. Yeah, you can't play a judgment. It just because I don't like the person, that does nothing for me, So you have to take away judgment and find the pure love of something. Or if you can't love it, the empathy, and find the connection to that, the understanding. Like nature, present, absolutely present. Finding the deity, finding the deity within the matter, finding the, what am I trying to say? Finding the God of something. And I think of in Exodus 3:14, Moses on Mount Sinai asks the God of the Bible, of the Old Testament, he says, tell the people of Israel that this is what I've said. And Moses says, when the people of Israel ask, who sent me? What shall I tell them? What is your name? And God says, tell I am that I am. Tell the people of Israel, I am sent thee. And I found that earlier this year, or earlier last year, and it hasn't left me, that it's sublime, the sublime beauty that the name of God would be absolute presence. I am that I am. I will be what I will be when I will be it, wherever I will be it. It's absolute presence. It just is absolute being. And that it's so beautiful that can be the pinnacle, that can be the insurmountable absolute perfection of creation, that from that comes all creation, and that it's absolute, that it's the only thing that can be absolute, the presence of it. I'm not very religious, but I love the Bible, the writing of it, and I do think, to think that is the pinnacle, that what everyone should aim for is presence, unjudging, just presence as you are, and that what you are is enough. We should just all aim for that, like the child playing in the park. Very simple, very, very simple, but the child doesn't think too much. He just kind of does it. That kind of does it. And I don't think a child is very self-aware either. The child isn't self-aware, I don't think. You know, you see 10-year-olds and they speak a certain way. I always find that they speak a certain way. I was just in a graduation party yesterday, and there were a few like 8 to 12-year-olds kind of like playing by themselves, and I was you know, hanging with my classmates, and I was kind of, at times I was listening to what they were saying, you kind of pick up on the rhythms of like when you enter that kind of age, 8 through maybe 12, that kind of coming of age section of our lives. There's this beauty, that's where the beauty starts to lose. That's the kind of age where the childlike innocence starts to go away, and it becomes a lot. If you're present, you can actually gift someone your kind of your presence, in an audition room. You know, you can kind of, or just when you're doing theater, when you just perform, you know, when you're just playing on when you're even doing music, you can gift someone something through being so present. And so you find that it's not about getting the job, it's just about gifting someone your work. And if they take it, they take it, good, you know, lovely. But if they don't take it, you could tell yourself, well, I did my work. I did work today, and that's good, and that's enough. And if something good comes along from doing that, good, thank you. That's lovely. You have to be very thankful. But if it doesn't, that's not why I started. It returns to it, the child. I started because of the love. And as long as you hold on to that, nothing will kill it, because it's so, it you know, there's so much rejection and, you know, and unkindness around these things. But unfortunately, there could be a lot of unkindness if you just grounded in, you know, why you do it, why you do this, because it, you know, and you gift someone maybe that, you know, and also you can't take that person too personally, you know, the unkindness of someone, the kind of bitter, not, maybe not bitter, but the kind of, although it can be, but the kind of reserved aspect that a lot of these things come with. Like maybe an audience member comes in and they're looking at your, in an audition, and they're looking at you, and they're not having it, because they've been sitting there seeing 1,000 other people doing something. Like they have their head here, they're like, next. It's very kind of, you know, and that can be very hurtful, you know, to someone who really loves this, and to see that someone's not. But if you're present there with them, if you're really with them, and you look at them in the eye, you give the gift of that, and just maybe, I remember like Bryan Cranston saying this, but just maybe they get their head off their arm, and they do that one motion, and they're there, even if and a spark of the child arises, and then you got him, and then it's good. Take care to listen with all your ears and all your soul. And I say all your ears and all your soul, because the mind must work too, but not too much.